The U.S. announced it seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker in the Atlantic Ocean linked to Venezuelan oil shipments. Joining us to discuss is Bart Marcois, foreign policy analyst, former career diplomat and energy department official, and news commentator creating daily bite-sized news analysis under a minute with Bart. Okay, Bart, good afternoon. So it looks like this is the first time in recent history that the U.S. military has seized a Russian-flagged vehicle like this. Do you think this signifies a more assertive posture than before in terms of U.S. enforcement of sanctioned oil?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very muscular move by the Trump administration. And I'd like to point out that that so-called Russian flagged vessel has only been Russian flagged for about a week and a half. When it was first attempted to be boarded by the Coast Guard, it was a stateless vessel with a false flag. And it had violated maritime law by doing that. It ran away. And while it was running away from the Coast Guard, the crew hastily painted a Russian flag on the side, and then they registered the vessel, changed its name from Bella One to Marinera, and registered it in Russia. So calling it a Russian flagged vessel, yes, technically that's true, but it did that while it was being pursued by the United States Coast Guard.
So does this also show that the U.S. is enforcing sanctions globally? Because this was in the Atlantic Ocean, not just near Venezuela.
It's what they said they would do. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said, we're going to enforce these sanctions anywhere in the world. We are serious about Venezuela. Uh, the Trump administration has told Venezuela to kick Russia, China, and Iran and Cuba out of there. And he's making it clear that he's not going to back down. This was a real face down of Vladimir Putin. The Russians, once they agreed to flag the vessel, they sent a Navy ship, a Russian warship, and a submarine to escort the Bella, the Marinera. And so we countered by sending AC-130 gunships, the Army Special Forces Night Stalkers group, um, Poseidon sub hunters, and a what am I missing? And a couple of F-35s to support the operation. Trump is telling Putin, "I'm taking this tanker back down," and Putin backed down.
Okay, you said earlier that the flag was only up for about a week. I still wonder, does this carry political and diplomatic weight, seizing a vessel from a major country? Does it introduce a new variable in the U.S. Russia relationship or increase tensions?
Yes, of course it does. And it's Trump saying to Putin, I gave you every chance. I worked with you. I tried to come to peace terms with you over Ukraine. I tried to settle things with you, but you are not my partner in peace. And I am representing American interests, and American interests dictate that you stay out of Venezuela. That's what he's saying.
Okay, so I want to ask you, how is strict enforcement of sanctioned oil going to impact Venezuela compared to before, where the sanctions were in place but not enforced to this level?
Well, ironically, it's going to be the best thing in the world for the Venezuelan people because the illegitimate Venezuelan government that has been in power for so many years has been systematically looting the country, and they've been neglecting the oil fields. Oil fields have to be tended, they have to be maintained, and they've let them lapse to I've seen estimates as low as 4 or 5% of their production capacity. The Trump administration is saying, we are enforcing the sanctions. We are going to take that oil, we're going to sell it, and we're going to give the proceeds of the oil sales to the Venezuelan people and to the American companies that had their oil field assets stolen from them decades ago. It, the Venezuelan people are going to see a much greater benefit now that the sanctions are being enforced rigorously.
Okay, so let me follow up on that because I'm thinking about China right now. It's been a customer of
Yeah.
Venezuelan oil. So, I mean, do you think Beijing could be worried right now about essentially losing a major long term energy supplier? And what is the significance or impact of this?
Yeah, they are definitely worried about losing this supplier because they've been buying their oil from Venezuela. The oil they're buying from Venezuela, they've been paying a steeply discounted price for because it's under sanction. Venezuela can't sell it on the world market. It can only sell it to China or to India. And China has been buying it for I don't know how much, probably 30% of its market value, and now they have to pay full price. President Trump said in his original press conference, yeah, we'll keep selling it to China. We're going to be in the oil selling business, but they're going to pay world market prices for it. And frankly, you're looking at a possibility of something similar happening in Iran if you pay attention to the street protests there. And so it's not just the economic effect. This is a face down of Xi Jinping as well as of Vladimir Putin. Xi Jinping is looking at the prospect of being the greatest failure in as a leader in Chinese history if he cannot adapt to the new circumstances. And all the people like Lee Jae-myung in South Korea who've hitched their wagon to the star of China and of Xi Jinping have got to be looking and saying, wait a minute, maybe we should be a little bit more conciliatory to the United States and distance ourselves from China. Everybody in the world is going to start distancing themselves from China now because Chinese power is suddenly weakened.
Okay, that is a good point. You're saying this is not just about the economic impact. You said that this is a failure on Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping's part. So what does this do exactly to China's Western Hemisphere strategy?
I think that China realizes that Trump's enforcement of the Monroe Doctrine is serious, and their Belt and Road and string of pearls strategies stops at the Western Hemisphere. They are not welcome in the Western Hemisphere, and they're going to be systematically pushed out. And that affects Chinese prestige all around the world. Every leader is suddenly recalculating their commitment to China.
Okay, just final question. What does this do in terms of how does it affect the politics within China with Xi Jinping as the leader?
That's such an opaque world to me, but I have to make an educated guess that there are factions within the Chinese Communist Party and Chinese power structures that are looking at Xi Jinping, and there've got to be guys sitting there thinking, now might be my chance to take him down. He might be weak, he might be vulnerable. I don't know this, but I suspect that there are people hatching plots right now, uh, trying to decide whether they're going to roll the dice and push him out of power.
Okay, well, Bart, great insight as always. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.